To give my daughter a fairy tale, I secretly worked for months to buy her dream wedding dress. But a single tiny stain turned my perfect gift into a weapon she used to shatter my heart. Make sure you subscribe because you won't believe the absurd misunderstanding that led to this unbelievable act of cruelty. My name is Eleanor, and at 64, my greatest joy has always been my daughter Lily. Seeing her happy is the compass by which I've navigated my entire life. So when she announced her engagement to a good, steady young man, my world lit up. But it was during a visit to my small, quiet home a few weeks later that the seed of our story was planted. She was scrolling through a bridal magazine, a dreamy look in her eyes. Suddenly, she stopped, her breath catching. "Oh, Mom," she whispered, her voice filled with a hopeless sort of longing. She turned the magazine toward me. It was a wedding dress. But it wasn't just a dress. It was a promise spun from silk and moonlight, a cascade of organza and the most delicate, hand-stitched lace I had ever seen. It reminded me of my own wedding. I had married the love of my life, but our wedding was a simple affair in a courthouse, and my dress was a practical white suit I wore for years after. I had never had a fairy tale. "Isn't it perfect?" she sighed, then quickly flipped the page, a sad smile on her face. "Way out of my league, of course. A price tag is more than a down payment on a house." She laughed it off, but I saw the flicker of real disappointment in her eyes before she hit it. And in that moment, a quiet, fierce, and probably foolish plan was born in my heart. I would get her that dress. I would give her the one perfect, magical day I never had. I didn't have much. My late husband's pension and my small Social Security check were enough to live on, but not enough for fairy tales. So I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I went looking for work. I found it at the local farmer's market, working for the Henderson family's sprawling produce stand. It was hard, back-breaking work. My day started before the sun, in the damp chill of the early morning, helping them load heavy crates of potatoes and corn onto the truck. My hands, which were used to the gentle work of knitting and gardening, quickly became rough and calloused. All day, I was on my feet, weighing vegetables, making change, smiling at customers, even when a deep, burning ache had settled into my lower back. In the evenings, I would come home, every muscle in my body protesting. I'd soak my swollen feet in hot water, my whole body trembling with exhaustion. Some nights, the pain was so intense I could barely sleep. It was in those dark, quiet hours that the doubts would creep in. Was I crazy? Was a dress, a single piece of clothing, worth all this? But then I would pull out the old coffee can I kept hidden in the back of my pantry. Each evening, I would perform a small, secret ritual. I'd smooth out the crumpled dollar bills I had earned, my fingers stiff and sore, and add them to the growing pile. I would whisper, "Lily's name," and picture her face, her eyes shining with pure, unadulterated joy as she saw the dress. The thought of that single, perfect moment was the fuel that kept me going. It was worth every aching muscle, every sleepless night. It took me 4 months. 4 months of aching muscles, early mornings, and white lies to Lily about my new intense gardening hobby that kept me so busy and tired. Finally, one Friday evening, I poured the entire contents of the coffee can onto my kitchen table. There was a mountain of small bills and a sea of coins. I counted it once, then twice, my hand shaking. It was all there, every last dollar. Holding the heavy envelope of cash, my body ached, but my heart was soaring. I had done it. My secret mission was complete. I had captured my daughter's dream for her. I never could have imagined that this perfect gift, this ultimate, painful, beautiful act of a mother's love, would soon become the very weapon she would use to shatter my heart. The trip to the city, to the impossibly chic bridal boutique on the main avenue, felt like a pilgrimage. I walked in, clutching the thick envelope of cash in my handbag, feeling entirely out of place amidst the marble floors and the whisper-thin saleswomen who glided around in black dresses. I felt their eyes glance over my simple coat and sensible shoes, but I held my head high. I was not a customer here to browse. I was a mother on a mission. When I showed the saleswoman the picture from the magazine, her polite smile became genuine. "Ah, the Juliet gown," she sighed. "A true fairy tale." She brought it out, and even on the hanger, it took my breath away. It was a cloud of silk and lace, more beautiful than I had even imagined. I paid for it in cash. The woman's eyebrows shot up as I counted out the stack of crumpled bills, the physical proof of 4 months of aching bones and early mornings. She wrapped it with reverent care in a massive, pristine white box tied with a satin ribbon. Walking out of that store carrying that box, I felt a sense of triumph so pure it made me dizzy. My plan was to drive straight to Lily's apartment and surprise her. On the way from the parking garage, juggling the enormous box and my handbag, it happened. A child on a scooter, moving too fast, collided with me. It was a minor bump, but it sent the cherry soda I had just bought splashing from my hand. A few dark red drops landed on the corner of the perfect white box. My heart stopped. I rushed to a nearby bench, frantically dabbing at the spots with a napkin. Some of it had seeped through a tiny opening, leaving a single, minuscule pinkish stain on the very edge of the silk organza skirt. I felt a wave of nausea. My perfect gift was now imperfect. When I arrived at Lily's, she was there with her best friend and maid of honor, Jessica. My daughter's face when she saw the box was everything I had dreamed of. Her eyes filled with tears of disbelief and pure, unadulterated joy. "Mom, no, you didn't. How could you?" she whispered, throwing her arms around me. It was a perfect moment. She opened the box with trembling hands, lifting the gown from its tissue paper bed. She was crying and laughing at the same time. "It's the one!" she wept. "It's the one!" And then Jessica, who had been cooing with feigned excitement, leaned in closer. "Oh, Lily, it's gorgeous," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Then her eyes narrowed. "Wait, what's this?" She pointed a perfectly manicured nail at the tiny, almost invisible pinkish stain on the hem. Lily's smile vanished. She looked at the stain, then at me, her expression shifting from joy to confusion. "It must be a mistake from the store," I started to explain, my own voice trembling. "There was a little accident on the way." But Jessica was already whispering in Lily's ear, just loud enough for me to hear. "Are you sure it's new, sweetie? It's just weird that a boutique like that would sell a stained dress unless maybe she got it at a discount, like a sample sale or something." She paused, then delivered the final poisonous blow. Or worse. I saw the thought land in Lily's eyes, a horrible, ugly seed planted by her so-called friend. I saw her look at my simple clothes, then at the impossibly expensive dress, and then at the tiny, almost invisible stain. And I saw her beautiful, happy face contort into a mask of suspicion and cold, rising fury. "A discount bin?" she said, her voice dangerously quiet, no longer looking at me, but at the dress. "Or a thrift store? Or did you just find my dream dress in the trash, Mom?" The dress I had sacrificed for, the symbol of my boundless love, was now being called garbage. My daughter's eyes, once shining with joy, were now cold and accusatory. I didn't know that this was just the beginning of the nightmare. and that a pair of garden shears and Jessica's toxic influence were about to turn this absurd, painful accusation into an act of irreversible destruction. The accusation hung in the air, thick and poisonous. "Trash?" I whispered, my voice a strangled sound. "Lily, honey, no, it's the real dress, I promise. There was just a small accident." "An accident," Jessica chimed in, her voice dripping with false sympathy, as she put a protective arm around Lily's shoulder. "Or maybe it's a sign, Lily, a sign that this just isn't your perfect dress. A perfect day needs a perfect, unstained beginning." Every word was a carefully aimed dart, and I could see them hitting their mark. Lily looked from my face to Jessica's, her own expression crumbling. The joy from moments ago had curdled into a volatile mix of doubt and fury. "She's right," Lily said, her voice trembling. "It's ruined. My one perfect thing, and it's ruined." She backed away from the beautiful, delicate silk gown, which was still pooled on the floor like a cloud, looking at it now as if it were contaminated. I tried again, my heart pounding with a desperate urgency. "We can get the stain out, sweetheart. It's tiny. A professional cleaner." "So now I have to take my perfect gift to a cleaner?" she shot back, her voice rising. Her eyes narrowed, filled with a new, ugly suspicion. "Where did you even get the money for this, Mom? Tell me. You can't afford this dress. Is this even new? Or did you find my dream dress in some second-hand shop, stained and used, and think I wouldn't notice? Is that it? Were you trying to humiliate me?" Her words were nonsensical, a twisted interpretation of my gift, and I knew they weren't hers. They were Jessica's, fed to her in moments of private conversation, and now they were spilling out, toxic and irrational. I saw Jessica in the background, a small triumphant smirk on her face. "I'm going to get some air," Lily announced abruptly, her movements jerky. She walked out of the living room and into the small hallway where I had left my coat and my large canvas bag from the market. I heard her rummaging around. I thought she was just looking for her keys. I had brought my new electric garden shears with me that day. I'd bought them with my first week's pay from the market, a small reward for my aching back. They were still in the canvas bag in the hall. I had planned to stop by my friend Martha's house after visiting Lily to help her with an overgrown hedge. A moment later, Lily walked back into the room. In her hands, she was holding the heavy, bright orange garden shears. My blood ran cold. The scene felt utterly surreal. Jessica's smirk finally faltered, replaced by a look of genuine shock. Lily's face was a blank mask, her eyes glazed over with a frightening, unseeing calm. "Lily, what are you doing with those?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She didn't answer me. She just walked over to the beautiful, delicate silk gown, and with a steady hand, she lifted the shears. I heard the click of the safety being disengaged, followed by the low, hungry hum of the electric motor whirring to life. The hungry, electric hum of the garden shears filled the apartment, a monstrous sound in the quiet, sunlit room. It was the sound of a nightmare come to life. I saw Jessica take a step back, her face pale with the shock that told me even she hadn't intended for things to go this far. "Lily? No," I pleaded, taking a step forward, my hands outstretched. "Honey, please, just put them down. We can talk about this." But she didn't hear me. Her eyes were fixed on the dress, the beautiful, innocent cloud of silk on the floor. It was as if she saw it as the source of all her pain, a symbol of some great humiliation she couldn't bear. "You wanted to ruin my perfect day?" she screamed, her voice shrill and unrecognizable. "You wanted to give me something broken? I'll show you broken." And then she brought the shears down. The sound was obscene. The sharp, buzzing blades met the delicate organza, and the fabric didn't just cut. It shredded, ripped apart with a brutal, violent finality. She moved with a frightening, trance-like focus, hacking away at the gown. The hand-stitched lace my fingers had so lovingly traced in the boutique was mangled into threads. The flowing skirt was reduced to a pile of tattered, lifeless rags. The sound of the whirring motor and the ripping silk was the soundtrack to my heart being torn to shreds. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching my 4 months of back-breaking work, my secret hopes, my ultimate act of love being utterly and completely destroyed in a matter of seconds. It wasn't just a dress she was destroying. It was us. It was every sacrifice I had ever made, every quiet prayer I had ever whispered for her happiness. When there was nothing left but a heap of ruined fabric on the floor, she finally stopped. The buzzing of the shears died, leaving a deafening, ringing silence in its wake. The smell of hot metal and ozone hung in the air. Lily stood over the wreckage, her chest heaving, the heavy shears dangling from her hand. Then her gaze lifted and met mine. There was no remorse in her eyes, only a cold, empty finality. "Get out," she whispered, her voice dead. "Take your trash with you and get out of my life." The buzzing of the shears finally stopped, but the silence that followed was even more horrifying. I had lost not only the gift I had sacrificed everything for. In that moment, I felt I had lost my daughter. I walked out of that apartment leaving the ruins of the dress and the ruins of our relationship behind, believing our bond was destroyed forever. I couldn't have known that the truth of my sacrifice was still waiting to be discovered, patiently, in the most unexpected of places. That week, my house was a tomb of silence. I didn't have the strength to listen to music, to turn on the television. The echo of the electric shears and my daughter's dead, empty voice were the only sounds in my head. I moved from room to room like a ghost, the pain a physical weight on my shoulders. I had lost my daughter, and with her, the very meaning of my own motherhood. It was Saturday morning when the frantic, desperate knocking rattled my front door. It wasn't a polite tap. It was the sound of pure, panicked urgency, a fist hammering against the wood. My heart leapt into my throat. My first thought was that something terrible had happened to Lily, an accident. I rushed to the door and flung it open. It was Lily. Her face was pale and blotchy, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Her usually perfect hair was a mess. She was clutching a large, extravagant bouquet of lilies and roses, but her grip was so tight that half the delicate stems were bent and the petals crushed. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. "Mom," she choked out, a raw sob tearing from her throat. Before I could say a word, she collapsed into my arms, weeping with an intensity that shook her entire body. I just held her, my own confusion and anger momentarily forgotten, replaced by a mother's instinct to comfort her child no matter what. After a long time, I led her to the kitchen table. She couldn't stop crying as the story poured out of her, the words tumbling out in a torrent of shame and regret. She told me she had been at the farmer's market with Jessica, picking out flowers for the wedding. She'd just spent over $100 on the bouquet she was now mangling in her hands. As they were about to leave, they walked past the Hendersons' produce stand, and that's when she heard my name. Mrs. Henderson was talking to her son, her voice laced with genuine concern. "I still worry about Eleanor. She hasn't been by all week. I hope she's all right. I've never seen a woman work so hard in my life. 4 months, taking every extra shift I could give her, never a single complaint." Lily said she stopped dead in her tracks, her blood turning to ice. Mr. Henderson's son had nodded. And the blisters on her hands that first month. She was so proud, though. Said it was for a big, special surprise for her daughter, something from that fancy dress shop in the city. She said her daughter deserved a fairy tale. Lily's voice broke as she recounted this to me. She said she just stood there, in the middle of the bustling market, the $100 bouquet feeling like a lead weight in her hand. The memory of her own cruel and sneering words came crashing down on her. "Did you find my dream dress in the trash, Mom?" The truth about my aching back, my calloused hands, my secret savings hit her all at once. She told me she turned to Jessica, her face a mask of cold, dawning horror. "You did this," she had whispered, her voice shaking with a newfound rage. She said she just turned away, leaving her so-called friend stunned and alone among the flower stalls, and ran. She ran, crushing the bouquet in her fist, not stopping until she got to her car and sped straight to my house. Tears streamed down my daughter's face in my kitchen, hot tears of shame that seemed to be washing away the weeks of poison that had filled her. "I was so stupid, Mom. So cruel. I let her poison me. Can you ever forgive me?" The apology was real. The truth was finally out between us. But the beautiful dress, the symbol of my love and sacrifice, still lay in a ruined heap in her apartment. Was an apology, however sincere, enough to mend something that had been so violently broken? I looked at my daughter, her face streaked with tears, her body trembling with the force of her regret, and the ice around my heart finally melted away. I saw not the monster from the other day, but my little girl, lost and manipulated, who had made a terrible, terrible mistake. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly as she sobbed into my shoulder. "It's okay, honey," I whispered, stroking her hair. "It's okay. We're okay." Forgiveness, I've learned, is not about forgetting. It's about choosing to love the person more than you hate the wound. The next week was quiet, but it was a new kind of quiet, one of tentative healing. Lily broke off her engagement, telling me that a man who could stand by and watch that happen was not the man she wanted to build a life with. She also ended her friendship with Jessica, finally seeing the toxic influence for what it was. But the ruined dress, a heap of shredded silk in a box, remained a silent testament to the damage that had been done. One afternoon, a week later, Lily came to me, her eyes shining with a nervous, determined light. She led me to her living room, and there, hanging in a protective garment bag, was a dress. The same dress. Perfect, pristine, and breathtaking. "I took out a personal loan," she said quietly before I could even ask. "It'll take me a while to pay it off, but I had to. I had to make it right." Tears welled in my eyes. But then she did something I didn't expect. Next to the perfect dress, on the coffee table, was a single, chilled bottle of cherry soda. the same kind I had spilled. "It's not enough to replace it, Mom," she said with a mischievous flicker in her eyes I hadn't seen since she was a little girl. "The first dress was a gift of your sacrifice. This one, well, this one has to be a gift of our story. Of us." I understood immediately. We laid the magnificent $10,000 gown out on clean sheets on the floor. We stood over it, the open bottle of soda between us, and for a moment we just looked at each other and giggled, a sound of pure, unadulterated freedom. Then, together, we went to work. We didn't just spill it, we painted with it. A delicate splash on the hem here, a graceful drip along the train there. We used straws and small paintbrushes, turning the bright red soda into a beautiful, abstract pattern of blushes, pinks, and crimsons. We were transforming a symbol of pain into a masterpiece of our reconciliation. A month later, Lily walked down the aisle, not to marry that young man, but to celebrate her own new beginning at a small party for our closest friends and family. She wore the dress, and it was breathtaking. The stains, which had dried into beautiful watercolor-like patterns, looked like they were part of an avant-garde design. Everyone was in awe. "Lily, your dress," my cousin whispered. "Which designer is it? It's a work of art." Lily just looked across the room at me and smiled, a secret, knowing look that was worth more than all the money in the world. Who would have thought that a ruined wedding dress that cost $10,000 could build a new, unbreakable relationship? That $10,000 helped build something truly priceless. And for that, no amount of money is too much to pay. I hope you enjoyed the story. A like and a subscribe would truly make my day. Thank you.